The Committee of the Whole at Victoria City Council has just voted 7-1 in favour of taking down a statue of Canada's first Prime Minister. And City Council is expected to ratify that decision tonight. That means that this statue of John A. Macdonald is set to come down from the entrance of Victoria's City Hall this Saturday. The city's mayor, Lisa Helps, says it follows a year of consultations with local Indigenous leaders. She describes Macdonald as a key architect of the residential school system, and she says the statue is a painful reminder of colonial violence for those who have to walk into the building. But Victoria's Mayor Lisa Helps says history is not being erased. Helps says the way we tell stories of our history is always changing, and this is another example of that.
The process that we're embarking on is, as I said earlier, store the statue safely and continue to have a conversation with the community and with the nations about how do we tell the complex history of John A. Macdonald. I mean, look around the world right now. We live in one of the best countries in the world, and obviously John A. Macdonald had a significant role to play in that. Part of Canada's history is the residential school system. John A. Macdonald had a significant role to play in that as well. So we need to tell a very complex history of this man, and that's what we're intending to do.
Is prompting reaction in political circles. Alberta's United Conservative leader Jason Kenney called it historical vandalism. And here's what Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer tweeted before the vote happened this afternoon. We should not allow political correctness to erase our history. We can look to the past, acknowledge and learn from mistakes, and celebrate achievements at the same time. For more reaction, let's go to Conservative Senator Leo Housakos. He went on the record today reactivating the need to acknowledge, in his words, both the good and the bad in our history. He's in Montreal. And it's interesting because this isn't the first debate of this kind in Canada, and also the United States has similar debates. What are your thoughts about removing a statue like this?
I think it's terrible. I think it's revisionist history. I think as Canadians we should celebrate all of those that contributed to laying the foundations for building the greatest country in the world. It's unfortunate just a while ago the Prime Minister himself took a unilateral decision to rename the Hector Langevin building, which is of course the historic Prime Minister's office in Ottawa. He did it without consultation. He did it without debate. He unilaterally tore a strip off the Prime Minister's office building, the building that's been named for the longest time by one of the founders of Confederation. I think this is wrong.
This decision, though, happened after a year of consultations with Indigenous groups. How do you reconcile those concerns with your concerns?
I think it's important for people to understand that history is a learning tool. History is not something that we should go back, revisit, and try to relive. It's not something we should go back and try to rewrite. And it's not something that we should go back and try to use it as a platform for a settling of accounts. History is something, like I said, is a learning tool. It is something where we have to celebrate the accomplishments of those great figures that have contributed to building the country. But it's also a tool that has to recognize some of the dark moments in the history of the nation. And make no mistake about it, the residential school process was a dark moment in Canadian history. I'm proud as a member of Stephen Harper's Conservative caucus because he launched the Commission on Truth and Reconciliation. Prime Minister Harper got up in the House of Commons and recognized the terrible, bleak moment in Canadian history that the residential schools were. That's how we build reconciliation. That's how we bring the elements of this country together to create unity.
Is there any way to reach a compromise here? I mean, it's one thing to have a statue to recognize the first Prime Minister, but does it have to be right in front of City Hall, where people might be going in to do all kinds of different business?
It has to be front and center right across the country, because I want to reiterate, like I said earlier, these statues, these portraits, this recognition of Canadian history recognizes everything that we are as a nation. It recognizes those wonderful moments, those accomplishments of these people. They're fallible human beings. It also recognizes some of the mistakes they made. If we try to banish and expunge these individuals from our history, we won't even learn about their school residential mistakes that were made. And like I said, it's only part of the healing and growing of a nation that we recognize that there were some difficult moments. We did it, of course, in the late 1980s when the government of Brian Mulroney addressed the Japanese atrocities during World War II, for example. We have had other blemishes in our history besides the residential schools. We had Canadians of Japanese origin and Italian origin interned during World War II. The Canadian government addressed these issues. That's part of the growing process. Do we tear down the statue of Mackenzie King? Do we bring down his portrait because of those particular errors in history? No, you don't.
We got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you so much.
That's Senator Leo Housakos in Montreal.